Well, lawmakers in Pennsylvania and Florida are actually pushing to abolish property taxes altogether. They say you're basically paying rent to the government. So who pays them?
What you need to hear. But here's the thing, those headlines don't tell the full story. And the reality involves a lot more complexity than a simple claim about 8 states getting rid of property taxes. For Florida specifically, there actually is a major development heading toward the 2026 ballot that could change everything about homeownership costs in this state, and that's what we need to talk about. That viral headline about 8 states eliminating property taxes refers to Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, New Mexico, North Dakota, Virginia, and Wyoming, all of which had property tax measures on the November 2024 ballot. Most of these measures involved partial exemptions or caps on how much assessed values could increase, which is very different from actually eliminating property taxes altogether. Only North Dakota put true full elimination on the ballot, and voters rejected it by a margin of 63% to 37%. Every single state in America collects property taxes right now, whether at the state level, county level, or municipal level. Hawaii charges the lowest effective rate at just 0.27%. But even Hawaii still collects property taxes. When you see lists claiming certain states have no property taxes, those lists are wrong because no such state exists anywhere in the country. What does exist are states with low rates and states actively working toward elimination, and Florida leads that second category by a wide margin. Governor Ron DeSantis has thrown his full support behind a constitutional amendment targeting homesteaded properties, meaning primary residences where the owner actually lives. The Florida House filed 7 proposed constitutional amendments in December 2025 with the goal of putting this before voters in November 2026. The details matter enormously if you're planning to buy, so let me walk through exactly what this proposal covers. This amendment would only affect homesteaded properties. Second homes, rental properties, and commercial real estate stay taxed under the current system, which means investors buying to rent out won't see any benefit, and neither will people purchasing vacation homes. Florida currently pulls in roughly $55 billion annually from property taxes, and that money has to come from somewhere if this passes. The passage requirements set a high bar because the amendment needs 60% voter approval plus 60% supermajority votes in both legislative chambers. Current polling shows only 49% support, which falls short of that 60% threshold. Realtor.com senior economist Joel Berner projects that Florida home values would jump between 7 and 9% if property taxes disappeared. And the logic tracks because eliminating an ongoing ownership cost increases the present value of any property. What that projection means for you depends on timing. Buying before passage could mean watching your home appreciate when the measure goes through, but waiting until after implementation might mean paying more for the same house since sellers will factor eliminated tax costs into their asking prices. Property tax revenue hit $797 billion in 2024, representing 38% of all state and local government revenue and over 70% of local tax collection specifically. The national average annual bill sits at $4,271, but averages hide what's really happening in individual communities. Between 2019 and 2024, property taxes climbed 27% across the country, and nearly 74% of properties experienced year-over-year increases during that period. In 270 counties, bills have more than doubled over 4 years. In 18 counties, they've tripled. Rick Becker, who championed North Dakota's elimination measure, captured the movement's core argument when he stated that private property forms the foundation of a free society and that government shouldn't possess the power to take away something you rightfully own. Supporters often frame it this way: you never truly own your home if the government can seize it when you can't pay property taxes, even after your mortgage disappears completely. Seniors on fixed incomes feel this squeeze most acutely because home values and property taxes keep climbing while Social Security payments lag behind, leaving people who planned their retirement around a paid-off home unable to afford taxes on a house they supposedly own free and clear. For younger buyers trying to calculate whether they can afford a mortgage payment, property taxes add substantially to monthly housing costs. And in Florida, those taxes stack on top of insurance premiums that have their own crisis unfolding right now. New Jersey tops the property tax charts with an effective rate of 2.23% and average annual bills approaching $10,000. Illinois runs around 2%, Connecticut and New Hampshire both hover near 1.9%, and Texas charges roughly 1.60%. Hawaii sits at the bottom with that 0.27% rate, though sky-high home values mean actual bills still average over $2,000 annually. Alabama charges between 0.36 and 0.38% with bills under $800, Nevada collects at 0.44%, and Arizona takes 0.45%. Florida falls somewhere in the middle, not the highest and not the lowest. But when property taxes combine with insurance costs and other expenses unique to Florida homeownership, the total burden grows heavy. Florida already attracts people moving from high-tax states because it charges no state income tax, and eliminating property taxes on primary residences would strengthen that competitive advantage dramatically. Understanding what happened in North Dakota helps explain the challenges Florida will face, even though the two proposals differ in scope. North Dakota's Measure 4 would have banned all political subdivisions from levying any property taxes, not just on primary residences, but on everything. The state tax commissioner estimated $3.15 billion per biennium in lost revenue. Despite strong grassroots energy and genuine anger about rising property taxes, voters rejected the measure 63 to 37%. School funding concerns drove the opposition more than anything else. Property taxes supply 36% of total K-12 revenue nationally and 82% of local education revenue specifically. Teacher Brenda Seehafer explained that losing over $1.3 billion per year in property tax revenue would strip away curriculum and student services. Voters decided the uncertainty around school funding created too much risk, even for people who hated paying property taxes. North Dakota actually attempted elimination back in 2012 with Measure 2, and that effort failed by an even wider gap at 76 to 24%. The 2024 result represents real progress for elimination advocates because the margin narrowed by more than half. Governor Kelly Armstrong declared property tax reform his top priority after taking office, and in May 2025 he signed HB 1176, which more than tripled the primary residence credit to $1,600 annually. Representative Scott Lauser announced plans for another November 2026 ballot measure focused on shifting 100% of public school funding to the state level. Any property tax elimination proposal runs headfirst into the same problem, and you need to grasp this if you plan to follow Florida's 2026 measure closely. Property taxes serve as the primary funding source for public schools throughout most of America. New Hampshire draws 61% of school revenue from property taxes, while Connecticut takes 57%. Eliminating property taxes forces states to find replacement revenue from somewhere, and the options narrow quickly to sales taxes, income taxes, consumption taxes, or general fund spending. Each alternative creates problems. Sales taxes hit lower-income households proportionally harder because those families spend more of their income on taxable goods, which policy experts describe as regressive. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy specifically labeled sales taxes as deeply regressive. Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio addressed elimination proposals bluntly when he explained that the legislature would need to find alternative funding and that he couldn't identify any path that didn't require a sales tax increase larger than any other state in the country. The Tax Foundation warned that despite its unpopularity, the property tax operates relatively efficiently from an economic standpoint, and switching to any alternative would damage economic growth. The Texas Tribune raised another uncomfortable point. Elimination proposals provide no direct benefit to renters. Texas alone contains 4.2 million renter households who would see nothing from property tax elimination, and whether landlord savings would flow through to lower rents remains debatable at best. When Ohio surveyed 16 economists about whether eliminating property taxes would reduce per-pupil school spending, 12 of them agreed it would. Texas offers a useful comparison because both states are large, fast-growing, charge no income tax, and face intense pressure over property tax costs. Texas kept property taxes intact but enacted the largest relief package in state history. Governor Abbott signed HB 9, SB 4, and SB 23 in June 2025, raising the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000, and increasing the senior and disabled exemption to $200,000. The business personal property exemption climbed to $125,000. Average Texas homeowners save approximately $500 annually under these changes, while senior homeowners save around $1,000, and roughly 90% of seniors may end up paying zero school maintenance and operations taxes. The total package delivers $51 billion in relief over the 2025-2027 biennium. Senator Paul Bettencourt, who authored the relief bills, called this legislation the single greatest impact on senior and disabled property taxpayers of any bill the Texas Senate had ever passed. Senator Carol Alvarado, a Democrat representing Houston, pointed to the bipartisan nature of the effort when she noted that property tax relief isn't red or blue but green, uniting Democrats and Republicans across rural and urban districts from day one. Governor Abbott proposed letting voters decide on eliminating school property taxes for homeowners through a constitutional amendment, but Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick pushed back, explaining that getting rid of all school taxes would cost roughly $40 billion that the state would need to collect through other means. Texas demonstrates both the political appeal of property tax relief and the practical limits that stop states short of full elimination. Nebraska launched the EPIC Option 2.0 initiative to collect signatures for the November 2026 ballot, and this proposal goes even further than most by eliminating property taxes along with income taxes and inheritance taxes starting January 1, 2028. The campaign needs 124,000 valid signatures and has raised approximately $175,000 since 2023. Governor Jim Pillen expressed strong support, stating that the goal is ensuring property taxes fund zero education costs because the Nebraska Constitution makes educating children the state's responsibility, not property taxpayers' burden. An opposition coalition that includes the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, League of Municipalities, Hospital Association, and Realtors has organized against the measure. Pennsylvania has several elimination bills sitting in legislative committees, including HB 310, SB 929, and separate proposals targeting school property taxes specifically. Senator David Argall called the school property tax an archaic funding method dating to the 1830s that the legislature cannot continue patching. Pennsylvania nearly succeeded before when SB 76 lost by a single vote, 24-25 in 2015, after Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack cast the deciding no vote. One vote separated Pennsylvania from becoming the first state to eliminate school property taxes. Ohio continues gathering petition signatures, though economist surveys suggest skepticism about passage. The majority of states have concluded that substantial relief carries less political risk than full elimination, and several recent examples show what that approach looks like. Kansas passed SB 35 in March 2025, eliminating the statewide $1.5 million levy while transferring $81 million annually to local governments as replacement revenue. The state-level property tax disappeared, but local property taxes remained. Georgia enacted the Save the Homes Act through HB 581, creating a floating homestead exemption that caps assessment increases at the inflation rate, regardless of actual market values. That change took effect in January 2025. Idaho signed HB 304 in March 2025, committing $100 million annually to property tax relief funds with an estimated 14.6% average reduction for homeowners. Illinois introduced SB 1862, which would eliminate property taxes only for homeowners who have lived in their residence for 30 years or longer. All of these approaches share one thing in common: they deliver real relief without triggering the massive revenue replacement crisis that full elimination creates. Understanding the history explains why elimination proves so difficult to achieve despite widespread frustration. Property taxes rank among the oldest forms of taxation in human civilization, stretching back 6,000 years according to the Tax Policy Center. American local governments have relied on them since colonial times. Several states actually eliminated property taxes before. During the late 1830s, New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina All briefly stopped collecting property taxes. Every single one eventually brought the tax back because growing state and local government needs proved impossible to fund through other revenue sources. California's Proposition 13 in 1978 reshaped the modern property tax debate when voters capped rates at 1% of assessed value with 2% annual increase limits. That measure triggered a nationwide tax revolt that pushed almost every state to impose some form of property tax limitation. The current elimination movement represents the next evolution of that same political energy, with voters who accepted limits decades ago now questioning why the tax exists at all. Let's map out what happens under different outcomes. If voters approve the amendment with 60% support, implementation would take time because constitutional amendments don't activate overnight. The state would need a transition period to establish replacement revenue and allow local governments to restructure their budgets. Home values would likely climb based on that 7 to 9% projection, which reflects basic economics since eliminating an ongoing ownership cost increases an asset's value. Anyone already owning a homesteaded property when this takes effect would see their home appreciate while their annual costs dropped, building equity faster and keeping more money. Anyone trying to buy after implementation would pay more for the same house. And whether tax savings offset the higher purchase price depends on how long you plan to stay and what happens with interest rates. Something has to replace that $55 billion. Sales tax increases would mean paying more every time you buy anything. Relying on state general funds depends on continued surpluses that aren't guaranteed. Service cuts affect everyone regardless of home ownership status. Florida would become even more attractive for relocation with zero property taxes on primary residences combined with no state income tax, which would drive more migration, more housing demand, and more upward pressure on prices. If the measure fails to reach 60% approval or stalls somewhere in the legislative process, the current system continues. The political pressure for reform continues too, which makes substantial relief likely even without full elimination. Texas provides a model where meaningful help reaches homeowners without the disruption that full elimination would create. From your perspective as someone trying to buy, failure probably means less dramatic short-term changes, but more predictability since you could calculate housing costs based on existing tax rates with reasonable confidence. These considerations should shape your approach if you're actively looking to buy in Florida. Don't let the ballot measure drive your timeline because November 2026 sits almost 2 years away. If you're ready to buy now and you find the right home, buy it. Trying to time the market around a political outcome that may or may not happen is speculation rather than planning. Factor property taxes into your affordability math regardless of what happens with the ballot measure since you'll pay them for the foreseeable future. Florida's average effective rate runs around 0.80%, but rates vary significantly by county, so get specific numbers for the areas you're considering. Learn what homesteading means and requires because the elimination measure only applies to homesteaded properties where you actually live as your primary resident. The process involves filing paperwork with your county, and understanding those requirements now saves problems later. Watch for market adjustments as 2026 approaches, because if polling improves and passage looks more likely, buyers and sellers may start pricing in expectations before the vote actually happens. Calculate the total cost of Florida home ownership since property taxes represent just one component. Insurance costs have exploded across the state. HOA fees add up in many communities. Weigh everything before deciding whether buying makes sense for your situation. Stay informed as the ballot measure develops because polling, debate coverage, and implementation details will become clearer as we approach November 2026, and those details affect what passage would actually mean for you. 8 states are not eliminating property taxes, and that headline misrepresents what's actually happening. A genuine political movement for property tax reform has spread across multiple states, powered by real frustration over rising bills and the philosophical argument that nobody truly owns their home as long as the government can take it for unpaid taxes. North Dakota attempted full elimination and failed decisively. Texas opted for massive relief instead. Nebraska and Pennsylvania have active proposals working through their systems. But Florida's story matters most. if you're watching from here or thinking about relocating. A real possibility exists that by 2027, Florida could eliminate property taxes on primary residences, and that change would reshape the economics of home ownership throughout the state. The measure faces steep obstacles, including the need for 60% approval, when polling shows 49% support, legitimate worries about school funding, and the challenge of navigating both legislative chambers. Passage isn't impossible, and even failure likely leads to substantial relief, since the political will behind property tax action runs stronger than it has in decades. If you're a first-time buyer in Florida feeling crushed by prices, rent, and insurance costs, this development deserves your attention. It won't solve every affordability problem because no single policy can do that, but it represents a meaningful shift that could make homeownership more accessible. Don't trust headlines that oversimplify complicated stories, but don't dismiss the property tax reform movement either. Real changes have already passed in multiple states, and more are coming. Whether those changes help you depends on your specific circumstances, your timeline, and decisions that voters and legislators haven't made yet. Stay informed about what's actually happening, run the numbers for your own situation, and make housing decisions based on reality rather than viral headlines.